The US has been hit by two very strong quakes today, magnitude 5.2 in Alaska, Tectonic Quake, followed by 4.1 in California on Mendocino tectonic area. But before the Mendocino, California quake, we also had an aftershock of the Alaska quake at a 3.8. That was about 6:45 in the morning, and the California 4.1 Mendocino was 3:30 in the afternoon. Did they affect each other? Could be. Let's remember what happened July 4th. July 3rd, we had an earthquake north of Vancouver Island, as you can see here. That's just above the Juan de Fuca Plate, Vancouver Island. And 13 hours later, on July 4th in the morning, we had a ridge crest earthquake of 6.4, which was the foreshock to the 7.1 the following day. This has happened in the past, recently, in 2015. Again, we had a 6.2 magnitude earthquake north of Vancouver Island, and 24 hours later we had a ridge crest earthquake, but that was a moderate size, if I remember correctly, about a 3.5 magnitude. This is the area where we had the Alaska quake, and we'll see it together on the map. This is the area of the 5.2 and the 3.8. And the 3.8 was about 7 o'clock in the morning. The California 4.1 at Petrolia was 3:30 in the afternoon. Let's take a look at them together. All right, here we are at Seismo Berkeley. This is the aftershock of the Alaska quake. This is it right here, 5.2, 113 kilometers west of Gustavus, Alaska, which is basically somewhere in here. And we had the 3.8 at around 6:43 a.m. UTC. And then we had the Petrolia quake and a lot of aftershocks, as you can see. I lost it, sorry. Here we are. Okay, and we've had aftershocks today as well. This is it right here. Okay, this was it. Felt by 28 people reported it. 4.1, it was off the coast at 21.4 kilometers depth. These were more shallow. The Alaska quakes were more shallow, as we can see. 2.2 kilometers depth, 245 people felt it. And if we go to see where the faults are on this area, let's go to aerial so we can see it much better. And to the faults and tectonic plates. Okay, this is a subduction right there. And the tectonic plates, you can see that a lot better. Right there. It's right on the tectonic plate, as you can see. And if we go further south and follow the line, it does go, let's see, it comes here, okay. We'll wait for the map to bring it up. Okay, this is Vancouver Island. That's a tectonic plate. This is Juan de Fuca plate right here. And this is a Mendocino fracture zone right there. This is Petrolia. So you can see that it does connect. It's the same. There it goes. We're following it up again. The tectonic plate right there. And it goes up to the Alaska quakes, actually. The 5.2 and the 3.8 that we saw before. Let's go in a little bit further out so you can see it clearly. It's right on the Gorda Escarpment Mendocino fracture zone, as we can see here. That's a very earthquake-prone area. We've had a lot of quakes around Seattle lately. This is Vancouver Island. This is where we had the Bella Bella, Canada, north of Vancouver Island. The 6.2 13 hours before the July 3rd earthquake of 6.4 in Ridgecrest. And the same thing happened 6.2 in 2015 that gave another Ridgecrest earthquake 24 hours later of a moderate size. So following up this area here, this is our area right here, the tectonic plate. So as we saw on the map, it does go into petroleum. There may be some people saying, no, it has nothing to do with it, but we see it right here on the USGS map. There it is. And of course, this is San Andreas. San Andreas, this way. Going through the whole area of Ridgecrest. This is Golet Fault. It has been marked on the Canadian map as well, as you can see. Here they have it at 10 kilometer depth, 5.4 instead of 5.2, but it's the same earthquake, as you can see. And this is the Canadian map having to do with all the quakes along the tectonic plate right here. And this must be the 3.8, they have it at 3.8. This was along, about a month ago, November 29th. As you can see, Canada has a lot of quakes as well, on the west coast and on the east coast. Pretty big. This one was on the 17th, 3 magnitude, Ontario. Okay, and they also mark the mid-continental rift earthquakes as well, around Lake Superior. Okay, so this is what's happening here. It seems that the pressure perhaps ran down, even though we've had a lot of quakes in the area of California, as you can see here. Okay. Earthquake details. 28 people. And as we know, it's a subduction zone. So as you can see, the bottom line with the green horizontally showing across California, Lassen Peak to the right. This is an area of course, the high threat volcanoes of the West Coast. California, Oregon, Washington, even up to British Columbia of Canada. Of course, they don't show the Long Valley Caldera supervolcano. That's more south towards the Coastal Volcanic Field. But they show the Northern California volcanoes. And Mendocino is where we had the 4.1. And up further above the Vancouver Island area, of course, you have Alaska going up to the north. And you can see that this is all full of activity. The Mendocino is where we had the earthquakes in California. It's a fracture zone, transform boundary over 2,500 miles long, starting off the coast of Cape Mendocino, Northern California, running westward from Triple Junction San Andreas Fault. It runs from the San Andreas Fault and the Cascadia subduction zone to the southern end of the Gorda Plate and continues on west of its junction with the Gorda Ridge as an inactive remnant section which extends for several hundred miles. The fracture zone is not a transform fault, but in the case of Mendocino, the term has been loosely applied to the active fault segment of the Gorda Ridge. Many seismologists refer to the active segment of Mendocino, and the fault section demarcates the boundary between the northwestward moving Pacific Plate and the eastward moving Gorda Plate. Okay, so this the northwestward Pacific Plate, eastward moving Gorda Plate. As you can see, that's what happens there with the arrow showing. The fault sections demarcate the boundary between the northwestward Pacific Plate. So Gorda Plate subducting beneath North America Plate just offshore of Cape Mendocino, where the Mendocino Fault intersects the undersea trench of the subduction zone it also meets San Andreas Fault. The seismically active intersection is called the triple junction, specifically the Mendocino triple junction. Tsunami studies, energy focusing around the fracture zone has been noted, leading to increased wave heights in the area around Crescent City, California, and the fracture zone is referred to as Mendocino Escarpment. The history of this, it was observed in 1965. The alignment of the tectonic zone extended from Mount Lassen and Walker Lane fault system. You know the Walker Lane? The Walker Lane is where we have Ridgecrest and Kosovo volcanic field. It's parallel to the east of San Andreas. The Walker Lane is not one fault, it's a series, it's a fault system, Walker Lane fault system. And at the north of the Honey Lake Fault, suggesting it was once the continental terminus of the Mendocino Fault, forms the boundary of the Mother Plateau, Columbia Plateau, provinces of Great Basin. Okay, so the Walker Lane fault system is basically where we had the Owens Valley earthquake of the Kosovo volcanic field, Ridgecrest earthquake. Walker Lane is a geological trough roughly aligned with California-Nevada border to where Death Valley intersects the Garlic Fault, a major left lateral strike-slip fault. And Walker Lane is between Pyramid Lake, Nevada, and California, Lassen Peak. Walker Lane takes up 15 to 25% of the boundary motion between the Pacific Plate and North American Plate, and the other 75% is taken up by the San Andreas Fault to the west. Walker Lane may represent an incipient major transform fault zone which could replace the San Andreas as the plate boundary in the future. So this is the Walker Lane that goes into the Mendocino, as we said before. Eastern California shear zone is the southern portion of the Walker Lane. That's where we have Ridgecrest earthquakes, extending to south from Owens Valley, continue across and south of the Garlic Fault in the Mojave Desert to the San Andreas Fault. Several 7+ earthquakes have occurred along the Eastern California shear zone. This is the southern area of the Walker Lane fault system we're talking about. Okay, including the 1998 Landers earthquake, the 1999 Hector Mine earthquake, the 2019 Ridgecrest earthquake sequence we're still seeing, and the massive 1872 Lone Pine earthquake in the Owens Valley area. So this is the story today. It's very active, and it seems like the quakes are getting a little bit bigger than what we're used to. We'll have to keep an eye out on this. And all of you who live on the West Coast, I hope you have your earthquake apps in order to have the application inform you of any type of earthquake that could be shaking your area where you're located. You will be notified. Even a few seconds can make a great difference for you to find shelter, because they are warning of major earthquakes that could be hitting the area. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.